For over 3,000 years, peace had reigned across the galaxy. The humans, once scattered across their small blue planet, had built an empire that stretched to the stars. But now, something was wrong. A silence had fallen over the cosmos, an eerie stillness that felt out of place. The kind of silence that made the hairs on the back of one's neck stand up. Admiral Naira Drax stood on the observation deck of the Sovereign, staring out into the void of space. The stars twinkled as they always had, but something felt off. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something dark, something dangerous. She had seen the reports, heard the rumors, but she couldn't allow herself to believe them. For 3,000 years, humanity had enjoyed peace, with no major threats to their civilization. The galaxy was calm, controlled, and secure. Yet, the peace was now on the verge of shattering. The signals that had been picked up by Earth's deep space scanners had been strange. At first, they seemed harmless, just minor disturbances. But the patterns, the irregularities, were becoming too consistent to ignore. Something was out there. Something big, something with a purpose. The first attack had come from nowhere. The fleet of unknown ships appeared on Earth's outermost colonies like shadows in the night. No warning, no negotiation, just an overwhelming force, too fast, too organized. Communications were jammed before any defense could be mounted, leaving the colonies defenseless. The reports that came in were fragmented, desperate cries for help, but none came back. Back on Earth, the Council of Leaders convened in emergency sessions. Drax had been there, sitting quietly, absorbing every word, every warning. But nothing could prepare her for the cold reality when the Tyros, the aliens from the ancient ruins discovered centuries ago, finally revealed their true intentions. They had been watching, waiting, biding their time, and now they were ready to strike. Their fleet, enormous and relentless, emerged from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Drax could see the ships now, preparing for the inevitable assault. The feeling in her gut tightened as she thought about the fragile peace they had fought so hard to maintain. It had all come crashing down in an instant. The galaxy that humanity had spent centuries building was now on the brink of war, a war that no one had expected. As the first waves of enemy ships appeared on the horizon, Naira Drax made a silent vow to herself. The Exiros might have attacked first, but they had no idea what humanity was capable of. The silence had ended, and Earth was ready. The moment the first wave of Tyros warships entered Earth's atmosphere, chaos erupted across the planet. There was no warning, no time to prepare. The ships were too fast, too advanced. Their massive forms blotted out the sky, their weapons capable of tearing through Earth's defenses in an instant. The cities, once vibrant and peaceful, were now under siege. The Exiros had come with one goal in mind: conquest. They knew of humanity's technological advancements, but they underestimated Earth's most powerful asset, its will to survive. Admiral Drax watched from the command deck of the Sovereign, her fingers gripping the console as alarms blared all around her. The fleet was scattered, some ships too far from Earth's orbit to respond quickly, others struggling to protect the colonies already under attack. The first shots rang out, and the night sky was lit with explosions. "What is their strategy?" Drax asked, her voice steady but tense. "Unknown, Admiral," replied Commander Zane, her trusted second-in-command. "Their ships are overwhelming, and they seem to be targeting our planetary defense stations first." But it wasn't just the immediate threat that worried Drax. It was the silence of the attackers. The Exiros didn't communicate. They didn't make demands or try to negotiate. Their intentions were clear. They had come to destroy. "Send out every available ship," Drax ordered. "We need to buy ourselves time to regroup. We can't afford to lose our defense stations." But as the fleet scrambled to respond, something strange happened. A secondary fleet, even larger and more terrifying than the first, dropped out of hyperspace just beyond Earth's orbit. These new ships were unlike anything the Exiros had ever seen before. They were ancient, massive dreadnoughts, each one a formidable weapon in its own right. Their dark, jagged designs sent a chill through Drax's bones. "Those ships," Zane whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They're ours?" Drax's heart skipped a beat as she realized what had just happened. These dreadnoughts were human-made. But how? The technology was far beyond anything Earth had used in centuries. There was no record of such ships being built. These vessels were colossal, their hulls lined with weapons capable of turning entire fleets into ashes. As the Tyros' first wave began its bombardment, the human dreadnoughts opened fire. The power was immediate and devastating. The first enemy ship that entered their firing range disintegrated in an instant. The sight was nothing short of awe-inspiring. These ships were the ultimate expression of human ingenuity, and now they were Earth's last line of defense. But as Drax watched the battle unfold, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something bigger was at play. Where had these ships come from? Why had they been hidden for so long? What else did humanity have that the Tyros didn't know about? In that moment, the stakes were higher than ever. The battle for Earth's survival had just begun, and the surprise attack from the dreadnoughts had only raised more questions. The fate of humanity would depend not only on the strength of these mysterious warships, but on what secrets they might hold. Drax took a deep breath and gave the order. "Prepare for full-scale combat. These ships are only the beginning. There's much more we have to uncover." With Earth's fate hanging in the balance, the true fight for survival was only just starting. And the Tyros were about to learn that humanity's secrets were far more dangerous than they ever could have imagined. As the battle raged above Earth, Admiral Drax stood on the command deck of the Sovereign, her eyes glued to the massive displays showing the conflict unfolding. Earth's once dominant fleet was barely holding its ground against the brutal might of the Tyros. However, the sudden appearance of the ancient human-made dreadnoughts had turned the tide in their favor, yet the questions surrounding them still haunted her mind. "Where did they come from?" Zane asked, his voice low but filled with the same confusion that gripped Drax. The sight of the colossal dreadnoughts, their dark, jagged hulls cutting through the void like silent predators, was nothing short of terrifying. No one on Earth had seen ships of that size, nor had anyone ever suspected that such an arsenal was hidden away. "I don't know," Drax replied, her eyes narrowing. She couldn't allow herself to focus on the mystery now. There was still a war to fight. But deep down, she knew that the answers to these questions might hold the key to winning the war. The dreadnoughts moved with an eerie precision, their massive energy cannons ripping apart the Tyros' fleet one by one. Each shot from the dreadnoughts seemed to carry the weight of humanity's unspoken history, each blast a reminder that the human race was not to be underestimated. The Tyros, so confident in their initial assault, were quickly learning how wrong they had been. "We need to understand how they operate," Drax said, turning to her chief engineer, Dr. Ilara Voss. "Find a way to communicate with one of the dreadnoughts. If these ships are really from Earth, we need to know why they were kept hidden for so long." Dr. Voss nodded, typing furiously on her console. "We're trying to hack into their systems, but they're unlike anything we've ever seen. It's like they're on a different wavelength, beyond what we thought was possible." As the engineers worked tirelessly, Drax couldn't help but watch the destruction unfolding outside. The Tyros, once so sure of their victory, were beginning to retreat. The human-made dreadnoughts moved as though they had minds of their own, coordinated in their assault with deadly efficiency. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the effects of the war had already begun to show. Cities were in ruins, communication networks were down, and millions had already been displaced. The initial shockwave of the Tyros' attack had caused widespread panic, but now, with the dreadnoughts in action, hope began to flicker once again. Back on the Sovereign, the battle continued to intensify. The Tyros had learned to respect the human dreadnoughts, but the humans knew they couldn't rest on their laurels. The alien invaders would regroup, adapt, and return with more power. The war was far from over. As Dr. Voss finally managed to establish a weak connection with one of the dreadnoughts, she turned to Drax. "Admiral, we've got something strange. It's a message, but it's in a language I've never seen before. Drax's heart skipped a beat. Put it through. The screen flickered as a strange symbol appeared. A twisting shape, like a spiral, followed by a series of flashing lights. It was a code of some kind, but it was unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. The message was not in words, but in pure energy, like a language that transcended human understanding. "We're going to need to decode this," Dr. Voss said, her voice thick with uncertainty. The reality hit Drax like a punch to the gut. The dreadnoughts weren't just weapons. They were a message from humanity's past, something long forgotten, and possibly something humanity was never meant to uncover. "Do we have time to decode it?" Drax asked, her voice sharp. "I don't know," Dr. Voss admitted, "but I think we're running out of it." With the war continuing to rage and the dreadnoughts advancing on the Tyros, Drax knew that she couldn't afford to waste time. The truth was out there, waiting in the symbols and codes of the ancient ships, but she had no idea how much of the truth would be enough to turn the tide in this fight. For now, all she could do was keep fighting, hold her ground, and trust that the answers would come. But the one thing she was certain of was this: the Axiros had made a grave mistake in attacking Earth. They hadn't just awakened Earth's fleet, they had awakened humanity's hidden legacy, and that was something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The war had only escalated since the arrival of the dreadnoughts. Earth's forces were now holding their own against the Tyros, thanks to the overwhelming firepower of these massive ships. The Axiros had underestimated humanity's ability to defend itself, and they were paying the price. But even as victory seemed within reach, Admiral Drax couldn't shake the growing suspicion that these ancient dreadnoughts were more than just weapons of war. They were a mystery, one that she was determined to unravel. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough." Dr. Ilara Voss's voice crackled over the comms. Her tone was tinged with excitement, but also a hint of trepidation. "The code, it's not just a message. It's a map to something hidden, something powerful." Drax's heart skipped. A map to what? Voss paused before replying, the weight of the discovery hanging in the air. "It's a location, a place deep within the galaxy, far from Earth, and it's tied to the dreadnoughts." Drax's mind raced. The dreadnoughts had been built by humans, but their origins were a mystery. Who had constructed them? Why were they hidden away for thousands of years? And why had they been activated now, just as the Axiros arrived? The map could hold the answers to all of these questions, but was it something that Earth was ready to uncover? "We need to find that location," Drax said, determination filling her voice. "If the dreadnoughts were built to protect something, we need to know what it is." The Sovereign changed course, leaving the battlefield for a journey deeper into the unknown. As the fleet followed the path outlined in the mysterious map, Drax couldn't help but wonder what they were heading toward. She had fought wars before, but this felt different. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a search for the unknown, for the forgotten secrets of humanity's past. As they traveled through the depths of space, the crew of the Sovereign remained on edge. The further they went from Earth, the more isolated they felt. The stars seemed distant and cold, as if the galaxy itself were holding its breath. Then, after what seemed like an eternity, they arrived at the location marked on the map. It was a barren moon, orbiting a dying star. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about it, just another dead rock in the void of space. But Drax knew better. This was no ordinary moon. "Prepare to land," she ordered, her voice steady but filled with anticipation. "We're going to find out what's hidden here." As the ship descended, the surface of the moon slowly came into view. There was no sign of life, no vegetation, no structures. But something else caught Drax's eye. Deep cracks in the moon's surface, leading to what appeared to be a vast underground cavern. "There's something down there," she said, a sense of urgency creeping into her voice. The crew began to suit up for the expedition. As they made their way to the surface, the atmosphere grew tense. The air was thick with uncertainty, but also with the promise of discovery. Every step they took seemed to echo louder in the silence, as if the moon itself were holding its breath. At the entrance of the cavern, Drax hesitated for a moment, glancing at the team behind her. They had come this far, but what lay ahead could change everything. Could this be the key to humanity's future or its doom? With a deep breath, Drax stepped forward, leading the way into the dark. The walls of the cavern were smooth, metallic, unlike anything she had seen before. The deeper they went, the more it felt like they were walking through a forgotten monument, a relic from a time long past. Then they reached the heart of the cavern. There, in the center of the vast chamber, stood a colossal structure. It was like a throne room, but much more than that. It was a command center, a place of unimaginable power. And in the center of it all, a large, glowing sphere rested on a pedestal. Drax approached the sphere cautiously, her heart racing. This was it. This was the secret humanity had been hiding for centuries. The purpose of the dreadnoughts, the source of their power. As her hand hovered over the sphere, she felt a strange energy pulse from within it. The air seemed to hum with electricity, as if the very fabric of space around them was vibrating in response. "This is it," she whispered. "This is what we've been waiting for." But just as she was about to make contact with the sphere, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A loud, mechanical grinding sound echoed through the cavern, and Drax's instincts kicked in. Something was awakening. The Xyros were coming. And they weren't just attacking Earth anymore. They were after what humanity had hidden for millennia. Drax's mind raced. They had to unlock the secrets of the sphere before the Xyros could. The ground beneath Admiral Drax and her team trembled violently as the cavern's walls began to shift. A deep mechanical hum reverberated throughout the structure, echoing off the walls like the awakening of an ancient beast. Drax's instincts screamed at her to run, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from the glowing sphere in the center of the room. It pulsed with energy, casting an eerie light across the cavern. "Everyone, get back," Drax ordered sharply, pulling her team away from the sphere. They needed answers, not to trigger something that might lead to their destruction. But it was too late. The metallic hum grew louder, the ground quaking with an intensity that sent dust and rubble falling from the ceiling. Suddenly, the walls of the cavern began to open, revealing hidden chambers within the ancient structure. In the dim light, the crew could make out enormous machines and long-forgotten relics from Earth's distant past, advanced technology that had been buried beneath the moon's surface for eons. "This is no ordinary base," Dr. Ilara Voss muttered, her voice shaking with awe. "This is a weapon." Drax nodded, her heart pounding. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The dreadnoughts weren't just human-made. They were built to guard something far more powerful, and it seemed that the Xyros had unknowingly led them straight to it. "We need to secure this facility," Drax said, her voice tight with determination. "Whatever's here, it's the key to humanity's future." Just as she spoke, the sphere at the center of the chamber glowed brighter, and a series of deep mechanical clicks echoed throughout the room. The floor beneath them began to rise, revealing a massive elevator platform that led down further into the moon's core. Without thinking, Drax gestured for her team to follow her as they descended deeper into the moon's secrets. The journey down felt like an eternity. The further they went, the more disorienting the surroundings became. The walls were lined with intricate patterns of symbols and designs, alien in nature but somehow familiar, as if these markings were trying to tell a story that only a few were meant to understand. At last, the elevator slowed, and the platform came to a halt in a large underground chamber. The space was even larger than the cavern they had just left, enough to hold an entire fleet of ships. But what truly caught their attention were the massive structures scattered across the chamber. They were machines. Enormous, towering machines, their shapes shifting and undulating as though they were alive. They looked like something straight out of a nightmare, a combination of metal and organic matter, pulsing with the same eerie energy that radiated from the sphere. This is what the dreadnoughts were guarding, Drax said, her voice filled with disbelief. Dr. Voss stepped forward, her eyes wide as she examined the structures. These aren't just weapons. They're living machines, bioengineered to respond to human command. This is beyond anything we could have imagined. Before anyone could speak further, the ground trembled again, and the sound of rushing footsteps echoed through the chamber. Drax turned to see a group of Kairos soldiers rushing toward them, their weapons raised. "We don't have much time," she said, drawing her own weapon. "Get to the control center. We need to activate these machines now." The crew sprinted towards a series of consoles embedded in the walls, each one covered in the same strange symbols they had seen earlier. Dr. Voss quickly began to interface with one of the consoles, her fingers flying over the alien keys as she tried to make sense of the commands. Come on," she muttered, frustration evident in her voice. The Xyros were closing in, and time was running out. Drax felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up as she watched the machines in the chamber begin to stir. They were waking up, responding to the presence of the humans. Slowly, their massive limbs began to move, and with each motion, the room seemed to come alive. "Got it!" Dr. Voss shouted triumphantly. The console flickered to life, and a holographic map appeared in the air, showing the location of all the machines in the chamber. Drax's heart skipped a beat. The map revealed something far more terrifying than she had anticipated. These machines weren't just a defense mechanism. They were part of an ancient network, one that spanned across the galaxy, with connections to distant star systems. They were humanity's ultimate weapon, hidden away for millennia, waiting for the moment when Earth would need them most. The Kairos were not the only ones who had underestimated humanity's potential. Earth had kept its power hidden, waiting for the right time to reveal it. But now, that time had come. "We need to act now." Drax shouted, "Prepare for combat. We activate these machines, and we send a message to every corner of the galaxy. Humanity is not weak. We're not afraid." The crew stood ready, their eyes locked on the machines as they came to life. Drax knew the battle wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about reclaiming Earth's place in the galaxy, about showing the Kairos and everyone else that humanity was far more than just a peaceful, unsuspecting species. And with the awakening of the machines, they would finally see what humans were truly capable of. The chamber rumbled as the machines came to life, their colossal forms shifting and stretching, awakening from centuries of slumber. Their movements were slow at first, as if testing the waters, but soon they began to move with a terrifying purpose. Drax and her team watched in awe as the mechanical behemoths activated one by one, each more formidable than the last. The hum of energy in the air intensified, and the ground beneath them seemed to resonate with the pulse of power emanating from the ancient machines. "Admiral, these aren't just weapons," Dr. Voss said, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. They're alive. They're linked to the sphere, linked to us." Drax's mind raced. What she had thought to be simple war machines were now something more. They were living, breathing entities, responding to their presence and to her command. They were humanity's greatest weapon, hidden away for eons, waiting for this exact moment to be activated. As Drax stood at the heart of the chamber, the map of the galaxy flickered above her, showing the interconnected network of these ancient machines scattered across the cosmos. The truth hit her with the force of 1,000 suns. Earth had been hiding more than just dreadnoughts. They had hidden an entire army of living machines, beasts of war capable of obliterating entire fleets. She glanced over at the control center, where Dr. Voss and the others were working feverishly to understand how to fully control the machines. Their options were limited, but their determination was unshakable. They had to unlock the full potential of this ancient arsenal before the Xyros reached them. The enemy had already crossed into the moon's orbit, and time was running out. "Admiral, We have control over a few of the machines, but not all of them, Dr. Voss called out. We need more time to access the network. Drax nodded, her jaw set in grim determination. We don't have time. We'll have to make do with what we have. She turned to the soldiers standing by. Prepare for combat. We're going to hold them off until we can activate every last one of these machines. The Xyros were no longer just another alien race trying to invade Earth. They were fighting for their lives. Their ships had advanced weapons, but nothing in their arsenal could compare to the power that now stood at Earth's command. As the machines began to move into position, Drax could see the fear in the eyes of her soldiers. They were no longer afraid of being defeated. Instead, they were filled with the kind of hope that only comes from knowing they had something the enemy could never understand. The battle for Earth had just taken a dramatic turn. Outside, the Xyros fleet was preparing for its final assault. Thousands of warships lined up in the darkness of space, their weapons primed and ready to unleash hell upon the planet. They had expected an easy victory, an unopposed conquest of a weakened species, but they had underestimated the humans. Drax looked out at the sky, the fleet above them growing closer. Get the dreadnoughts ready. We're not waiting for them to strike first. She turned back to the ancient machines. Their massive bodies shifted as they aligned, their glowing eyes locking onto the approaching Xyros. The network of machines was far from fully activated, but with the few they could control, humanity now had the upper hand. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about showing the galaxy the true strength of the human race. The first shot rang out, a brilliant blast of energy fired from one of the colossal machines. The Xyros ships were unprepared for the sudden onslaught, and the energy beam ripped through their formations with ease. Explosions erupted in the vacuum of space as the Xyros fleet was thrown into disarray. The humans had taken the first strike, and they had struck hard. Target their command ship, Drax shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Take down their leaders, and the rest will scatter. The dreadnoughts surged forward, their massive forms cutting through the battlefield with precision. The Xyros were retreating, but not fast enough. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to prove something, to show the galaxy that they were no longer the weak and defenseless species they had once been. As the battle raged on, Drax could feel the shift in the air. The machines, those ancient guardians, had given humanity something far more valuable than mere victory. They had given them hope, a hope that burned brighter than ever before. It was a hope that could not be extinguished, not by the Xyros, nor by any force in the galaxy. The fight for Earth had only just begun. But this time, the humans had the strength to fight back, and they would not go down without making their mark on the stars. We're not finished yet, Drax said, her voice cold with resolve. Let the galaxy know that the humans are awake. The full force of Earth's ancient power was unleashed. The battle for their future had begun in earnest. The battle in space was nothing short of catastrophic. The once unified Xyros fleet, known for their unmatched power and technology, was beginning to falter. The tide of war had turned in favor of humanity. Earth's dreadnoughts, alongside the ancient machines now under their control, were showing no mercy. Massive energy blasts lit up the dark expanse of space, sending shockwaves through the Xyros formations. Admiral Drax stood at the helm of one of Earth's dreadnoughts, watching as the Xyros fleet scattered under the onslaught. The newly awakened machines had become the perfect counter to their advanced technology, striking fear into the heart of the Xyros warriors. She could feel the pulse of victory, but she knew they weren't out of danger yet. The Xyros were fierce, and their desperation would make them even more dangerous. They're regrouping, Dr. Voss reported from her station, eyes glued to the holographic map of the battlefield. They've activated their hidden reserves. Another wave of ships is approaching. They're not done yet. Drax clenched her fists. The Xyros may have been fierce, but they had no idea what they were up against. The machines, now fully activated, were unlike anything the Xyros had encountered before. They were not just weapons, They were a part of Earth's history, a history that had been buried for 3,000 years, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Hold your ground, Drax barked into the comms. Earth will not fall today. Suddenly, a new signal flashed across their communication screens. It was a Xyros distress signal. Drax's eyes narrowed. Was it a trap, or had they truly reached the breaking point? Admiral, they're offering a ceasefire, Dr. Voss said with a raised eyebrow. They're requesting to speak with us directly. Drax hesitated. In her gut, she felt the pull of caution. The Xyros were known for their deceit, for twisting negotiations to their advantage. But then again, this was unlike any battle they had ever fought. The sheer power they had unleashed could make even the mightiest conqueror reconsider their next move. Put them through, Drax commanded. The screen flickered to life, revealing the image of a high-ranking Xyros commander. His face was grim, his alien eyes wide with uncertainty. Admiral Drax, the Xyros commander began, his voice filled with barely concealed tension. This conflict is futile. We have underestimated your species. You possess weapons, power. We did not foresee. Drax stood tall, her voice cold but firm. It's not about power, Commander. It's about survival. You came to Earth expecting an easy victory. You came to destroy us. But you've made one mistake. And what's that? The Xyros commander asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. We are not afraid, Drax replied, her gaze unwavering. We've been at peace for 3,000 years, but Earth was never weak. And now you've awakened the fury of a species that has been waiting. You may have thought you could break us, but you were wrong. The Xyros commander looked taken aback, as if the words themselves struck him deeper than any weapon could. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent, the echo of Drax's words hanging in the cold void of space. What do you want, then? The commander asked, his tone now quieter, almost reluctant. Drax's eyes hardened. I want you to leave Earth. Now, if you do not, we will destroy you. We've shown you mercy once. But if you push us again, we won't hesitate. The commander's silence was thick, like he was weighing the enormity of Drax's offer. The Xyros had never known defeat, not in any form that mattered. They were conquerors, unaccustomed to the idea of being repelled, let alone threatened with destruction. The realization of their imminent annihilation was beginning to set in. Very well, the Xyros commander said at last, his voice a shadow of its former arrogance. We will retreat. Earth has proven itself more powerful than we anticipated. We will not press further. Drax didn't lower her guard. If you break this ceasefire, you will regret it. We're not finished here. The transmission cut off, and the Xyros fleet began to retreat, vanishing into the distant stars. The humans had won. Against all odds, Earth had prevailed. But Drax knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would remember the day the Xyros were forced to flee from Earth, and the machines, those ancient guardians, would never sleep again. Earth had awakened from its long slumber, and with it, the entire galaxy had just learned a hard lesson. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not afraid. Humanity was ready to fight. Prepare for reinforcements, Drax said, looking out at the stars, the vast expanse of space now open to them. We've just begun. And as the last of the Xyros fleet vanished, the dreadnoughts of Earth stood tall, a powerful symbol of humanity's enduring strength. The galaxy would never be the same again.